What's the most not safe for work thing you've done at work? My manager got caught the cook in the walk-in, and instead of firing the manager, they just moved the cook to a different store because there was no evidence, just hearsay. But a week or so later, she got caught in the act with another coworker. They both got fired. That's Denny's for you. I work in EMS. For a long time, we were excused from the HR meetings about harassment, but because of an incident before I got hired, we all had to go to a sexual harassment training with other regular office government employees. It was pretty cringe, because they clearly had no idea what we dealt with. At one point, the presenter was describing how we should report whenever someone makes a reference to anything sexual so it can be addressed, to which a medic asked if that included the patients who in front of us in the back of the ambulance. The presenter's only response was, "Oh my God, does that really happen?" We never had to go to an HR meeting again after that, probably because they were not equipped for the reality of our problems. Bricklayer here, another bricklayer was going around at tea and lunch time and nailing people's toolboxes to the scaffold. He does this one day and proceeds to go home early and hides his tools very badly on the scaffold we were working on. So, one of the blokes decides to take a shit in his toolbox and shut it up. This was on a Friday, so it was there all weekend. Used to smoke weed on my lunch break and come in so freaking high. I planned to quit soon, but noticed on my boss's calendar that there was an event called drug test. I quit before that event took place, but always wondered if that was meant for me. Dumb 20-years-old me got caught rubbing one out by my butchy lesbian boss in our single-stall shop bathroom when she walked in on me, forgot to lock it. She later told me she was bisexual, and wasn't offended, knew I was young and had urges, but to use her personal bathroom from now on, because it was closer to my desk, and it would keep my production up. I think this counts. I'm a freelance blacksmith these days, but it's still work for me. I once put my in the molten steel of a sword I was making for a very Karen-like client. He'll never know, but I still feel good about it. My first job at 15 was an ice cream stand on the beach. I made a lot of outrageous desserts for myself and friends. It was a friend and me that worked there together, and we just get high all day. It was the best first job, no supervision, and despite us being high and slacking, we were a busy store and made enough money for the boss to not care. He just wanted someone to open the place and not burn it down. Also, I sold LSD at another job. I also quit a job by locking the bathroom, clogging the toilet, and climbing out of a window. I helped smuggle some art over international borders. I house sat for a boss, and his daughter came over thinking he was out of town, and nobody was there. We had in his bed. I borrowed a company van for a weekend and drove 6 of my friends from Florida to New Orleans, blacked out partying, and woke up back home without the van. When I worked at a bar, I'd get my stuff set up, and then I'd help bands load in equipment before the bar was busy, did a lot of drugs with bands on the clock. Worked at Publix for 1 week and ate an entire birthday cake from the bakery by myself on a dare, and went home sick. When I worked at a warehouse, I found the only key to a storage closet nobody used and converted it into a tiny private bedroom so I could take naps on the clock. I've farted on customers. Once went on a business trip with colleagues. The hotel messed up my supervisor's reservation and they were overbooked for a convention, so I offered her my room, and we ended up sleeping together for 6 months until the boss found out, and I was fired. I had a boss who I knew he did shady stuff, and he offered me a job driving a van for 12 hours to the north to drop it off, leaving the van and taking a flight home. He told me it was risky, and not to look in the back. I did the job. I brought pot brownies to work for select cool people, but they were too strong, and I got busted and fired. I couldn't fit an artwork in the elevator, so I took the elevator 1 floor down, opened the door, stood on top of the elevator in the shaft, and rode the painting up to the 11th floor that way. Also, I am known to get obliterated at work Christmas parties, and apparently there's more stuff related to that I could list. I crawled underneath a 500-ton injection molding machine while it was running, jumped off a 6-foot electrical cabinet, and barely stuck the landing, performed percussive maintenance on a 480-volt relay with exposed contacts by repeatedly hitting it with a bare hand, and also walked underneath a 6,400-pound bucket mold hanging from the overhead crane. That one wasn't intentional. I wasn't paying attention and was looking down. Pay attention, folks. Used to work at a large entertainment venue that was badly run, and everyone knew it was losing money and would be shut down soon. Staff started to get a bit wild, knowing we only had a few months of employment there at best. Most of us were drunk within an hour or two of clocking in. Joints became the norm on cigarette breaks, and often the manager would come for a quick one too. I was dating another employee, so we'd sometimes sneak off to change a barrel in the cellar and bang down there. The clientele seemed to get wind of this attitude too. One time, we noticed a group of men all gathered around one table cheering. On closer inspection, they were watching a mature lady fist herself on the table. It probably was the greatest few months of paid work I'll ever experience. I had a bad beef and bean burrito just before a major meeting. I get a funny tummy before big meetings anyway, but this felt really different. 5 minutes before the meeting is supposed to start, I Hail Mary it to the nearest men's room, kicked the cubicle down, lowered my pants. I don't let my ass cheeks touch the seat in public toilets, so I hover my fat ass right above the toilet seat when I poop, and went to town all inside the toilet. I noticed after a few seconds the stench was incredible, and my ass felt really wet and sticky. I peered over my shoulder and looked down to see that in my haste, I had forgotten to put the toilet lid up, so what I had effectively done was take the biggest, wettest, stinkiest of my life, on top of a toilet lid cover. Just a huge pile of sitting stagnant on top of the toilet lid. I didn't have time to let the horror set in, so I wiped up, washed my hands, and ran the hell out of there feeling so much better tummy-wise. An hour later the meeting had finished. I ran to the toilets to clean it all up best I could. When I got there was an out-of-order sign on the door. Janitor was outside, putting on some thick gloves. I asked what happened, to which he replied, "A group of people decided it would be funny to all over the toilet." I was like, damn, some people, huh? Never spoke about this again. First job out of college in 1998 was at SAIC. Internet was new. I was new to an office setting, and I found it amazing I could just browse at work on my computer. That lasted a week or two before someone came and told me that management could see our internet searches. Immediately thought damn, but returned to work the following day, forgot all about this, and proceeded to look up more. I was politely asked to leave and not return again the following day. If you consider paid tutoring in high school being at work, then here is a story for you. I was a senior at the time and a TA for the class my girlfriend was in. She needed help, and her parents paid me to tutor her. Since I was the TA, I had access to the tests in advance, so we would go through the tests and answers while tutoring her in her room, with her parents downstairs. We would have and once the tutoring was done, her parents would pay me for my time. This occurred regularly during the semester, and of course she got an A in the class. My wife and I were having on my desk at the office one evening when we heard security doing their rounds. She got under my desk, and I just made it look like I was working. So, when security came by my desk, she was giving me a The security person even stopped and chatted for a moment. After that, we knew they wouldn't be coming back for an hour, so we went to the conference room and completely stripped down, and went at it on the conference room table. The following day, I had a huge grin on my face when I was in a meeting with the CIO, and he was sitting at the end of the table that she was laying on. Was the manager at a small mid-sized grocery store once upon a time. Started working there when I was 14 or so and worked there for 11 years, working up to manager. The pay was awful, and the hours were insane, but it gave me the freedom to pursue a musical career at the same time to a certain degree of success. As the manager, I had access to a bedroom upstairs which had a desk, a kitchenette, and a bed. The grocery store was in a plaza with 2 popular college bars, and across the street from a college and a dorm. I made friends with the servers of both bars and would be invited for drinks with them after my shift. Also made friends with a lot of the girls in the college. Having access to the bedroom upstairs came in very handy for small parties, which would end up having booze and drugs involved. The bed there was very useful for sexy times. Some of the wildest times in my life were at this grocery store, partying in the upstairs bedroom. As long as we cleaned up and got out before the owner got in at 9 a.m., we would be fine. The night shift did not care, and they were my friends anyways, so they would sneak a drink or two for us and enjoyed the company during an otherwise boring shift. Did I get away with all this? Yes and no. I always made sure to clean up and air out the room well ahead of the owner showing up, and I was a stickler to make sure nothing was ever stolen from the store or the bedroom. I left that job in my mid-20s, and recently at a funeral for an ex-coworker from that store, I ran into the owner again. We all went to a bar afterwards. I asked him if that bedroom upstairs was still there, and he said that in the renovations it got taken down and turned into a freezer or something. I said that it was a shame and that it was a great room. He said, "Oh, I bet you missed that room." He ended up sharing that he knew what was going on the whole time, but just didn't care because nothing was being broken or stolen, and all the work that needed to get done was getting done, and if police ever came for some reason, he would have just played dumb, and I would have taken the blame. Was in a boring long-ass meeting with at least 50 people. I decided to mute myself and go take a shower. After showering, came back with only a towel, leaving my upper body exposed. For some reason, my stupid brain wanted to see how I look while wearing only this towel, so I hovered the mouse over the camera button on Teams, which previews what your camera looks like. By mistake, I clicked it again, and there I was, top naked for 2 seconds on a meeting which was being recorded. I instantly closed my laptop out of reflex, switched off my internet router, then logged myself off the meeting. I believe no one saw it, because the presenter was sharing his screen, showing a presentation and people were taking notes. Once the meeting got over, I watched the recording of the meeting every second to see if my footage also got included, but fortunately it didn't. Also, it has been 6 months since that incident, so I haven't lost my job.